Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. I'm Julie Livingston of Want Leverage Communications. I'm here for another episode of PR Patter. I'm really excited about today's conversation with my guest, David Berkowitz. Welcome, David. David is the founder of the Serial Marketer Consultancy, the Serial Marketers Community, and the AI Marketers Guild. He's a real thought leader in the marketing space, and so I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Previously, he held marketing and strategy leadership roles with omni-channel ad tech platform MediaOcean, video production marketplace Story Hunter, social listening firm. I have such a hard time with this. Sysamos, sorry. Publicist agency MRI and Dentsu agency 360i. David has contributed more than 600 columns to outlets such as Advertising Age, Media Post, Venture Beat, and Adweek, and 5Tier, which we were just talking about. And he's spoken at more than 400 events globally. He lives in New York City with one daughter and two cats. So, okay, let's cut to the first thing on the agenda, which is tell me about your cats.
Yeah, well, they might try to break in here. So if you,
I have two myself.
Oh, wonderful. Well, they're Buddy and Cash. They're about 2 years old, so about 30 in people years or cat years. How does it all work? But yeah, but they're very good boys. They're from a wonderful rescue shelter in northern Westchester in New York.
Cool. Mine are from North Shore Animal Hospital, and cats make life interesting. I can tell you that. We just got back from vacation, and my male cat Matthew really has kind of wreaked havoc on our apartment. I guess he's a little upset that we were away from him.
Do you have a cat cam?
I don't know.
I recommend maybe the best tech recommendation I'll make today. If you look at Wyze, WYZE, they have terrific pet cam setups, and they're like motion detectors and things like that. So they're great. My daughter loves it when we're away, and she just like checks in on my app every now and then. And
David, you made my day. That is hilarious, and I think I'm getting it today.
Yeah, I guarantee it's going to be like the best tech you buy all year.
Okay. I read a recent article that you wrote about the 7 marketing intelligences, and in it, and it's a really enlightening piece. In it, you talk about Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, which many people know about. And these are, he was a psychologist who identified 3 ways that people learn. They have a visual intelligence, an auditory intelligence, and a kinesthetic intelligence, right? I know my mom was a learning disability specialist and often talked about those 3 intelligences and how she would help kids who were differently abled to learn by tapping into their strengths in those areas. So you've used his Gardner's theory about multiple intelligences as sort of a jumping off point, and related it to the marketing sphere. So I want to hear more about that and how the different marketing intelligences that you've identified make for stronger marketers in general. And it's a great rubric for leaders to look at so that they can build their teams with people who kind of embody these different things. So maybe you can elaborate on that.
Well, and thanks for having a forum to discuss it, because it's something that that it actually, just watching how my own daughter learns, for instance, it reminded me a lot about what Gardner was writing, and naturally I just keep veering into, well, how does this apply to marketing and marketers? And so much of it is that not everyone is going to have all of these kinds of intelligence, at least not be like a genius in all these areas, but people who might be who might not have any eye for design at all, right? Like they might rank very highly in empathy, right? And so there are lots of different ways to put different kinds of talents to good use. And so and also the kinds of intelligence can also apply across departments on a team, not just a marketing team, but say across a marketing services or tech company. So that you have, for instance, like persuasive, empathic intelligence, it can be really useful in an account manager kind of role. It can also be those can be really useful in HR and recruiting too. And so and even something like entrepreneurial intelligence, if you're looking for it, then you might find a designer who's incredibly entrepreneurial. I remember when I was at MRY, and I was running corporate marketing for this mid-sized marketing agency, and there was someone who I knew really mainly through Twitter and LinkedIn, and she had been interviewing there, and she wasn't sure. She was at a pretty large agency, and like she was coming up with all these ideas and I like things that she wanted to be involved in, and she was an account manager, and I said to her, I'm like, all this stuff that you're being told you can't do there, like I green light in a second. So
that if I could jump in, David,
please.
that is fascinating to me, because I know, I've been in public relations for 3 decades. I now specialize in raising executive visibility on LinkedIn. But when I held corporate positions in my career, I was often pressured into or criticized for not doing things that I wasn't good at, quite frankly. But I was great at the big idea, the out of the box thinking, and the strategy and linguistics. I'm a writer, right? But I was pressured constantly about the accounting portion of my when I was managing teams, and I never once got the help or had somebody in management say, this isn't your thing, so we're going to help you do it because you're doing all this other great stuff, right? That's moving the needle on our business. All right, this is not your specialty, but first of all, you can learn more about it, and we're going to show you, we're going to help you along. Never got that. And I am hearing now more and more that companies are seeing that type of management was a real time waster. And it was not a talent retention tool either. And I just was talking to colleagues of mine in a management consultancy startup, a very successful startup that was just acquired. And one of them oversees learning and development, one of my contacts. And she's just marvelous, a real thought leader in that space. And we were talking about how she was getting ready for budgeting for the next quarter or the next half of the year. And we were talking about it. She said, well, I don't really do that, Julie. I said, what are you talking about? That's your department, isn't it? Yeah, but I'm not really that good at it. So I have our accounting department and our CFO help me with it. I tell them what I want to do and what I think it's going to cost, and they help me figure it out. Wow. Well, doesn't that make a lot of sense?
Oh, it makes so much sense. And for those who listen in who are entrepreneurs, I think about this a lot, right? Like who are running their own consultancies or a small business. And it's like the number of skill sets you need just to survive are insane, right? Like I'm happy to admit I am not the best at pricing. I don't like it. I don't like a lot of the contractual stuff. I feel like I'm often underpricing myself, and so but also this idea that I don't have to be great at everything, right? Like
nobody. The fact is, nobody is.
No,
Sorry,
no
but nobody is.
And so it's like recognizing where where your own shortcomings are, and either if you still have to do this stuff anyway, like okay, like that's just stuff that you're going to accept that you'll wing it. Maybe you can learn a few things. Maybe you don't even have the bandwidth and resource to do that. Or ideally, you find someone to help you with those, with those kinds of pockets and fill in some of those gaps because like the sheer number of things that you need to be able to do from sales to your own marketing to operations that have nothing to do with servicing your clients.
That's right.
It's insane. And people like that though also then like wind up like if they do wind up back in a corporate role, I think like very few management teams, HR departments, and like know what to do with people like that, know how to tap into all these skills that in turn someone's learned by just having to fend for themselves in the wild.
I think this is so smart. So if you would, let's go through what you call the 7 marketing intelligences. Mm-hmm. And I know there are a couple others that you didn't add to your list, but are related. So let's start with quantitative intelligence.
Yeah.
We kind of just talked about that, but.
Yeah. And so, numbers, data, knowing the questions to ask of data, I think it'll be even more important in this AI fueled age because like you can actually get a lot of the basic analysis done for you through AI tools like ChatGPT and many others. So it's like which will also be fascinating, by the way, as we get into this era of artificial intelligence, how some of these things change. Because like quantitative intelligence, I think AI can carry some of the load, right? Not replace someone outright, but then give people who don't have that at all, I'm not the highest on there, a big leg up, as opposed to empathic intelligence, where this is the heart of what makes people, and you see AI actually. It's fascinating to see the amount of empathic language. I wouldn't call it empathy, but empathic language built into a lot of these tools. Have you seen Hey Pi, by the way?
No.
HEYPI.com. So it's one of the best funded AI tools, and it's seriously like you start communicating with it, and it feels like this AI powered therapist. Not replacing therapy. I'm not advocating firing your therapist and using AI. But when you need a sounding board, oh my God. And it is like it is clearly trained on a lot of social emotional learning best practices. It's wild.
Wow, that's crazy. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay, so tell me about persuasive intelligence. This is something that's obviously very important in the marketing business and certainly in advertising and public relations as well, because we want to persuade audiences to take particular action or to think a certain way.
And basically like all marketers need this in one form or another. Right? Like if you're just like if you're great at stringing words together, but they don't persuade anyone to do anything. If you're great at creating some kind of visual, audio, video experience, and it doesn't move anyone to feel anything, then it could be very pretty, or you could have a lot of talent, but then it's also, even art has a job to do, right? And it could be inspiring or moving or making one think. And if it doesn't do that, then it can still be art, and it's just, I'd say it's probably not as effective as it could be, and it's all the more clear when you're trying to hire someone, let alone trying to close a deal.
Like, how do you make the case? You need somebody. There are certain people who have a real knack for this, mm-hmm. Who really can understand the best ways, the most positive ways to persuade and to make an argument for things.
Mm-hmm. for
Okay,
sure.
design intelligence.
Yeah, well, and this was one of the more obvious ones to include, but like I avoided calling it creative intelligence here, just because you can have the most creative accountant who hopefully is also operating within legal frameworks.
Right.
You could have too creative an accountant, but literally everyone can be creative. I think there's more recognition now that that everyone, just by being on this planet, is creative to some degree, and even if you don't have the words or design skills to express that, then yes, that we all have that potential, but we're not all designers, right?
No, we're not. And often, even if you think of yourself as a creative in our industry, you may not have that visual sense where you could, you have the idea, but you don't really know how to present it in an impactful visual way.
And you even, where I'd say like a fun exploration would be like how do you go from intelligence to wisdom, right? Because again, like a very talented designer who still maybe doesn't get the brief, or doesn't, or never create something that goes beyond what the brief asks. Like you meet people who do that, and some who do this regularly, and it's incredible. And so what is that gap between being say a very talented artist and an artist that moves people or goes above and beyond? Like that's tough to really describe in such in such a subjective field, but you do tend to know when you see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also thinking of infographics and
Mm-hmm.
the kind of storytelling that we need to do today that is so highly visual,
Mm-hmm.
would require that kind of intelligence. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so here's the next one, which I think is one of the intelligences that I possess, and that is linguistic intelligence. So talk
Mm-hmm.
about that.
Yeah, well, being able to string words together and communicate a message and in a way that it's heard, and also in turn make people feel listened to because you understand what they're really saying. And it's an incredibly tough series of skills and kind of intelligence to master. And I feel like many with linguistic intelligence, like me, it's like what are the words again that's gonna go from sounding good to leading people to action, then just appreciating where people are on that kind of scale. It's incredibly tough and daunting, and I also feel like the more you have a certain kind of intelligence, the more you recognize what's missing, and like I could just appreciate people. Like I think of someone like Anne Hanley, right? I just incredible communicators out there. It's like how do they do it?
Right. Yeah, I think by really examining what great communicators do and kind of dissecting it,
Mm-hmm.
you could see their linguistic intelligence.
Yeah.
Right. I think that also people with linguistic intelligence have to possess another skill, which is flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to be somebody who has a broad spectrum of thinking. You can't just say, this is it. You know what I mean? You have to be able to listen and respond to customers' needs, client needs, and be flexible in terms of the kinds of language and verbiage that you're going to be using. So I think flexibility is a big part, certainly a big part of what I do.
Oh yeah.
So strategic intelligence.
Yeah, well, that gets into seeing the big picture, being able to connect trends. Those people who understand culture in a really deep way. They're like there's and exactly I follow he's now with the VC firm Hannah Gray, for instance, and I feel like he always is on that pulse of culture, and is able to assimilate so many disparate influences. It's fascinating when you see someone like that at work and be able to take all these different pieces and then just zoom out in a really impactful way.
Yeah. And that is such a necessary kind of intelligence to have on your team. And entrepreneurial intelligence. And I want to know how this fits into, of course, startups, smaller firms, consultancies, but also larger organizations. How does that play out?
Well, it goes back a bit to what I was saying with that hire an MRY, right? Like when you can recognize that kind of entrepreneurialism and say yes to things and find ways to empower that and find ways to at least test out new ideas. I think that one exciting thing when you're working in marketing and comms and you have this entrepreneurial streak to you is that there are often ideas you can test out on yourself, on your own firm, that it like before a client ever buys into it. And so you might think like, okay, you should do that. A client should be deep in the live streaming space, get into this. It's like, well, good. Yeah. My favorite and least favorite jargon is the term dog fooding. Yeah. When you eat your own,
what does that mean?
When you eat your own dog food and like you do the thing that your company does or that you do, and like put it into action yourself. So like if you are marketing a CRM company or something, like you should be using your own CRM to do this, right? It's just eating your own. If you're in the video space, you should probably be using video to promote what you're doing. And so that there are just a lot of if you're promoting like community management, like consulting services, then like are you a community manager anyway, right? How are you doing that? But that also means that there's like just a lot of room to play out there, and to me it's like entrepreneurial intelligence and the skill of playfulness, like they go hand in hand. It's just the best entrepreneurs then take that playfulness and turn it into a functioning and ideally sustainable business. But to even get there, it's just like you need to be able to play around with ideas and just see what you can do to bring them to life.
And you need so many insights by actually using or participating in the product or service.
Yes.
So there were a couple of types of marketing intelligence that you did not include in your 7. Creative and innovation intelligence, which I would think would be related to entrepreneurial intelligence. But so it just like, why didn't you include them on your list, or why didn't you make your list of 9?
Well, it could have been like 15 or 20, and I was even right. And once I had this list, I was even workshopping ideas with ChatGPT and being like, is there anything you think I'm missing here? And I didn't see anything that was a real gap, but just sometimes use tools like this as a sounding board. So with creative, I discussed it a bit in the concept of design. With innovation, I had a role over at the agency 360i, where at one point I had innovation in my job title, and it was like VP of Strategy and Innovation, something to that effect. And then and it's funny, like I wound up sitting down with my boss of 7 years, Sarah Hofstetter, one day, and we were like both about to tell each other the same thing, and that was like, we should drop innovation from my title because it shouldn't be one person's job.
Right. No.
And every single person, the support staff working anyone for the front desk or behind the scenes anywhere in that firm can be innovative about how they do their jobs, how they support the work that the firm was doing for our clients. And so that shouldn't be insourced to a single person.
That's cool. Okay, well, this has been a great conversation, but before we close out, I do want to get your early thoughts on Threads. Threads, for those of you who don't know, is a new competitor to Twitter, being put out by Meta, Facebook, Instagram. And I know you're an early user, and would love to get your early thoughts on it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's an impressive launch. It was, they're very smart to build on the Instagram audience.
I mean, the numbers have been crazy.
What surprises me most, though, is how quickly brands flocked to it. Okay? Because for those of us who've tried to convince brands to get on a platform that's been around for years, right? Like anyone who is like trying to get brands on Facebook and then Twitter and Snapchat and TikTok, and has gone through that process, and maybe a couple of dozen along the way too. But like it can take years to convince brands that like their target audience is there. Now, like, yes, this is an extension of Instagram, and there was some of that built-in audience, but there's also, there's also so much nervousness and anxiety about like what the experience is going to be like on social media, and that Threads, it didn't break. There have yet to be any major scandals. I'm not saying there's no bad content on there.
Right.
Like people getting together, there's going to be racism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, like all kinds of bad stuff, right? But that like this is not that the platform, if anything, is known for being too boring. That's I think that works in Facebook Meta's favor, and so it is a question of, will these 100 million plus stick around a while and actually get to know it and use it? But
right.
It's a viable alternative. Like it's definitely brand safe enough for a lot of very conservative, in the sense of like not push the envelope brands, right?
Right.
Not politically conservative, but for brands like that to just feel like they can operate there, and so it's at the very least, talk about experiential learning. It's at the very least worth being there and taking part in these conversations and seeing where things go. Like the initial adoption is not a guarantee of future success.
No, not at all.
But no matter what, it's an impressive launch.
It's an indicator. So, well, let's leave it at that, David. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, a lot of ways. Most social platforms, Threads included, I guess. I'm D Berkowitz, Blue Sky. I'm there too. So David at serialmarketer.net if you want to email me, or serialmarketer.net if you want to check out some of my work. So yeah, appreciate it.
That's great. Thanks for a great conversation.
Thank you.
And I'll see you all next time on PR Patter.